As you all know, a lot of medical applications come out of Israel, and those medical applications are changing how people extend their life, their behavior, their quality of life, and their ability to save lives. And on our panel today, we have some stellar people who are going to talk to us about things that are happening in Israel that are coming to the world stage. How many of you have heard of a company called Teva? Good, a good quantity of you. Well, you're going to learn today about the VC arm of Teva and its long reach right here into California, and some amazing companies that Pontifex, represented by Ron Nussbaum, who's the managing director, is investing in, and where those investments are going to take us. Life sciences is a long-term plan, and God willing, we'll live to be able to be beneficiaries if we have those problems, that we'll get them solved. We also have on our panel Homi Shamir, who's the CEO of Given Imaging. And you cannot read anything about medical devices these days without also coming across Given Imaging and their revolutionary pill cam, and we'll learn a lot more about that today. We're also very fortunate to have Benny Zeevi, who is the managing director and the head of life sciences and medical devices for Dfj Tamir Fishman, which is the leading VC in Israel for medical device activity, and we'll get a big broad stroke overview of what's happening in Israel. And then very excitingly, we also have a huge publicly traded company on our panel, although Given Imaging as well. We have a company called Cineron, which is right here in California and right here in Southern California, appropriately so. That's Israeli technology to make each and every one of us more gorgeous than we were the day before. And stay tuned, because we're going to have a demonstration of how that works as part of our panel today. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Benny. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sharona, and thank you, Glenn, for organizing this excellent event. May I have my slide? Okay. How do I move them? Where is the... Okay, Dfj Tamir Fishman is one of the venture capital firms in Israel. We manage more than $300 million in 3 funds. In our last fund that was raised in late 2007 and early 2008, we teamed up with DFJ, which I'm sure you all know. We are a diversified fund. We invest in IT, communication, life science, clean tech, and more recently in internet and media. We invest in breakthrough technologies. We take high risk, but we hope to have high returns. We performed very well in our first 2 funds, and we invest mainly in world-class entrepreneurs, and we take lead role in the investment as well as running the companies and so on. So what is the characteristic about life science? You know, in contrast to all other sectors, you know, like social work, social network on the internet, or semiconductor that no one knows if the market is there, the market will be. In the health market, there is always a health market. It's based on infinite demand for sickness and wealth. The problem is that it's highly regulated market. Product needs longer clinical trials. It takes much longer and much more money to bring them to the market. But if you have a product that addresses unmet clinical need, and from a favorable point from the reimbursement point of view, you'll get it to the market. There is a huge gap in the innovation in the healthcare market. The big pharma and the large medical devices are spending a lot of money in R&D, but they don't get too many products to the market. So it's a huge opportunity for life science, small life science and companies, medical device as well as biotechnology. So why Israel and why life science? It's based on entrepreneurial culture, as Yossi described very well before that, and human capital. There is a lot of research in the universities in life science. 35% of the research is in life science. 60% of the publication in scientific publication in Israel are in life science, and 1 out of every 3 engineers or scientists is in life science. So it's a huge setup in the academic level, and we have to bring this academic level to the industry. Israel is number 1 in the number of medical patents per capita or per GDP, and number 2 in biotechnology, and the percentage of life science patent compared to the overall patent is high above the average in other countries. It's a young industry. The industry is just, I would say, the last decade was a decade of maturation, and now the next decade probably we hope that will be a breakthrough decade for the Israel life science industry. From 250 companies in 1998, there are almost 800 companies today. About 55 companies are being formed every year. Most of the companies are quite young. They are mostly in early clinical trials. Those companies that are more advanced are mainly in medical devices. As you see here, most of the investment in Israel is in medical devices, about 60%, about 30% is biotech pharma, and the rest is IT. And as you see in the right side, you see that most of the companies are quite young. So the next decade will be the maturation decade of the life science industry. There is some support of the government for the life science industry. 20% of the chief scientist grant are going to the life science sector. The incubator are a huge source for seed companies in life science. 60% of the companies in the 24 incubator, which most of them are private, are in life science sector. There are all kinds of grants, and just recently the Israeli government announced the establishment of Yozma type. That's how the Israeli VC industry started, that it will give about $60 million to a life science fund. Probably it will divide it between several funds, and each fund will have to raise more money, but that will be a base for 2 or 3 dedicated life science funds. So that's a huge advantage in Israel. Every year about 300 million to 350 million are invested in Israel in the life science sector, mostly in medical devices, as I mentioned. The problem is that in IT and the communication sector, 60% of the investment are coming from outside Israel VCs, US VCs, European VCs, corporate. In life science, it's almost zero. So it's a huge opportunity for US VCs and corporate to invest in Israel. There's a much need for money in Israel. If you If you compare Israel to the US, in the US about 30% of the investment are in life science. In Israel, it's only 10 to 15%. And in contrast to Israel, in the US, most of the investment are in biotechnology. It's opposite than in Israel. There is a huge gap after the incubation period of seed company or Series A to take the companies further on in the development of clinical trials, and that's actually an obstacle in the development of the life science industry. But despite all that, many innovations came out of Israel, starting, you'll hear today, a few of them, from the capsule of given imaging to aesthetic and medical device like Cineron, the stent. Teva is the largest generic pharmaceutical companies. Intravascular monitoring, remote monitoring, MRI, CT, and nuclear medicine were developed in Israel by Ails You and were sold to GE in Philips, and are still developed. Cryotherapy for prostate cancer and kidney cancer is developed by Israel. The new aortic valves that replace surgery were developed by 2 Israeli companies that were acquired. One, PVT, was acquired by Edward Life Science, and just recently Ventor was acquired by Medtronic. So there are many innovations coming out of Israel despite the lack of money. There are few drugs that came out of Israel, blockbuster drug. Unfortunately, only one drug out of this list belongs to Israeli company, and the rest were licensed out to other companies, Copaxone of Teva. Many Israeli companies were acquired, and more so in the last 5 years. medical device companies were acquired in more than $3 billion in the last 5 years, but all over the years, Israeli companies were acquired, some of them too early, some of them as the mature companies, and even traded on NASDAQ like Omrix recently. There are few companies, as you can see here, traded on the stock exchange, not so many Israeli companies, so there is no index that you can do on Israeli companies. So what are the obstacles that actually prevent the development of this sector? There are few dedicated funds, too few dedicated funds that invest in life science. You can count them on one hand. Some of them invest also abroad, so not all the money goes to Israel. There is less than $350 million available for the next few years, assuming that no new fund will be raised in the next at least year and a half. So there is only $350 million, which is just a drop that is needed. Most companies are quite young, so there's not much involvement of corporate or outside VCs, and there are not too many Israeli companies like you see here, two representatives, Given Imaging and Cineron, that made it to become a global company. There are too many small companies. Many companies are doing basically the same. So our mission is, in the next decade, is to develop more mid-sized global companies in Israel. And if you want to hear more about the Israeli life science industry, you are all invited in 2 weeks to Israel to the Biomed, which is the largest life science event in Israel, with more than 5,000 participants every year. So saying that, I would like to transfer the microphone to Homi that will tell us a little bit about Given Imaging.
Thank you, Benny, and good afternoon. Before I start, my dear friend Yossi Vardi all the time joke about the capsule of Given and saying this is the true meaning of the light in the end of the tunnel. Let me explain to you why. What we are seeing now is our actually capsule for the colon, although it's not yet approved, this one in the USA, but when you swallow it and it's going all the way in the track and taking pictures of you, it's when it's coming out, you see it's really the true light in the head of the tunnels. So that's Yossi jokes. And we like it's going down there because it's taking a lot of pictures, seeing what's going on in your GI tract system, but also we make money out of that. So let me speak about Given and what it's all about. Really, when Given was created, it was created about a need. And as Benny said, when you look at medical company, you need to find the unmet necessary need to bring a device into the market. And to people who are not aware, where we went is to the small bowel. The small bowel is an area of about 20-something feet long that in the traditional way, it's almost impossible to reach it. Either you have to reach it through the top with an endoscope or from the bottom with a colonoscope. It's impossible to reach the whole length, and that's where we find the need that people who have diseases in the small bowel previously needed to have an operation. So that's where the idea came to Given, that we needed to serve a need that needed in the market. And where is the need came, and where is the solution came? The solution came actually from the military. Came from an institution called Rafael, which is the research and development of the military. And where it came actually from a missile technology. And when you look at the capsules, you see the similarity between a missile to the capsule itself. Now, what we are doing today as a company, today we have 3 capsules. We started, and most of our revenue coming here today are coming out of the small bowel. We're expanding now our capsules application both to the esophagus and to the colon. So far, we are in the 6th generation of software that's making our software very productive to the physician. And we basically selling the product all over the world. We have close to 70 countries that we are selling. And we have, recently we announced that we sold, that was up till think 2 weeks ago, we passed 1 million capsules. That's a tremendous amount of capsules being sold across the globe. And also, Given is a listed company. We listed in the Nasdaq Stock Exchange and in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. Our estimate revenue for the year, or our guidance for the year, is between $141 to $148 million. We are profitable. We're having a very strong cash flow. And as we keep saying, as the business continues year over year, we are growing the business and become more profitable as a company. Now, let me talk about the capsule that I took here, because I think to a lot of people who are over the age of 50 had the pleasure of meeting their primary physician who suggested them to go to colonoscopy. Unfortunately, a lot of people across the globe are refusing to go to colonoscopy because they don't like the procedures. They don't like to be shoved, although they're feeling that they are perfectly healthy. They don't like to be shoved with a large instrument to check do they have a colon cancer or not. Now, cannot be more non-invasive procedure than swallowing a capsule like that, and actually you can sit now in the audience while we are doing the procedure. So you really don't need to be sedated or to be hospitalized or to ask your wife to take you, or your spouse take you to the physician because you are under sedation. And we see a huge opportunity to expand our marketing because of the non-invasive of having these capsules. Now, let me just go back also to explain that the size of the market here. Unfortunately, colon cancer is the second largest growing cancer in the world. In Europe alone, because the compliance, what we call the compliance rate in Europe, is more than 80% of the population who are over the age of 50 refuse to have colonoscopy. And again, they don't feel it's necessary because they're feeling healthy and they don't want to get what we call the colonoscope through the back. And the same thing is in America. Now, if you are early detecting colon cancer, the chance of recovery is 90%. So there is a really huge need to grow cancer colon awareness, and we believe that we can save a lot of people by using our pill cam. Now, again, that's just showing to you, and the people who are not familiar, what are the other technologies. So you can see next to the pill cam the colonoscope, and recently there is also the virtual colonoscopy that it's been also approved in the state. Although there is issue of radiation here, and some, especially in Europe, people fear about using virtual colonoscopy equipment. But you see where is the advantages, and again, going back to where we start, the unmet needs, non-invasive, no sedation, no insufflation of the stomach, because when you are doing any of the colonoscopy, a virtual colonoscopy, you need to pump your guts because otherwise they can't see it. And then this, in one case, is the issue of radiation. Unfortunately, to all of the three technology, all of us still need to clean the bowels. You cannot see in the dark there completely. You need to have a clean bowels in order to use the product. Now, what is behind Given imaging? Today, we have capsules that we call it the passive capsules. I don't control the capsules. We believe that in the next couple of years, we'll bring capsules to the market that I can control. Capsules that I can take down, I can take it up. If I can do that, I can do a lot of other things. I can do biopsy, I can deliver drug, I can take samples. So it really will replace a lot of the colonoscopy, what they are doing today, but can create a lot of other market opportunity for us because those things have not been able to achieve so far. So we had Given, and later on you hear in my speech here, is that we believe that we can build a company that will be lasting for a long time because the technology, when we see it, it's not only the pill cam for the colon that we are going to introduce, it's the next generation of technology. Technology that you will be able to do a lot of additional things will make us as a very big company. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, hi everybody. I'm pleased to introduce you to Pontifex. When we established Pontifex 4 years ago, we want to be the official sponsor for birthdays. When we dreamed about Pontifex, we thought about two things. We thought that we can make a lot of money from life science, and much more than that. If it's work, if we're choosing, if we will choose the right companies, we will make a lot of money. Pontifex established 4 years ago by Eli Horowitz, Teva's chairman, Tomer Karev and myself. We're managing $125 million, and we're trying to do our best in the life science in Israel. We are almost alone, as Benny Zevi mentioned. Our main goal is to bridge the gap between science and management. We think there's a great science in Israel, but the management skills are lacked. Therefore, we're trying to assist these companies. We're trying to find the next blockbuster, the next Copaxone, the next Rebif, the next drug that will help the humankind. Much more than that, we're trying to establish big companies. We were trying to build maybe the second given, another Omrix, and maybe even another Teva. This is our goal. Now, the first fund that we established 4 years ago controlled 2 incubators. 2 incubators, 2 early stage hubs, clusters with over 50 life science companies in Israel. And the second fund is investing in mature companies that are coming out of these incubators. Therefore, we build our own proprietary deal flow, and we have our food chain. Right now, Pontifex is exposed to over 55 life science companies in Israel. Well, you know this slide, it's a generic slide, but take a look at what came out of Israel from drugs point of view. The Erbitox, the Copaxone, the Rebif, the Azilax, all of them are blockbuster. All of them came out of Weizmann Institute. And of course, the Exelon for Novartis and the Doxorubicin that came out of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. This is a unique. That's a lot. Israel is a leading country in life science. Over 800 biotech companies are located and managed here in Israel. I mean, we are number 2 per capita and number 1 per capita in IP. That says a lot. That says it all. In medical device, it's even more crowded. We have a crowded arena. It's a hot arena. In the last 2 years, a lot of acquisition happened. Medtronic is shopping around, and of course, St. Jude is shopping around. You can see the deals. Benny described it even better. I'll do it briefly. As for the Nasdaq public companies, you can see a lot of companies are traded in the States. There's another 3 or 4 companies traded in Europe. You know, all of you know Teva, but Omrix that was built last year by J&J, and of course Given, Rosetta, Carix, XTL, Compugen, Epix, all of them are great companies with promising pipeline. I will not go into describe my portfolio companies, but I will mention 3 of them. We have 3 companies, 2 of them in phase 3, 1 of them in phase 2. The first one is Protalix. Take a look. We took Protalix from Chapter 11. We took it public in the States. It's PLX. That's the ticker. Protalix is producing the Gaucher Pro-GCD treatment for the Gaucher disease, Israeli Ashkenazi well-known disease that right now the only seller is Genzyme. The market size is over $1.3 billion a year and is growing. And we have this compound at phase 3 waiting for results every day right now. The other company at phase 3 is MacroCure. We're dealing with diabetic wounds. We will launch phase 3 here in the States and of course in Germany and in Israel. Our most impressive company, I think in my eyes, is Aposense, also known as NST. Aposense has a set of small molecule detecting cell death. Aposense, note this sentence, aposense.com, but Aposense can change the world, the world that the pharma is thinking, the world that the pharma is making drugs right now. This was on a leaf shell Pontifex. Thank you very much.
How do we do this? Okay. Hi, I'm Ann Berzak, and I'm with a company that produces this system. The name of the company is Cineron, and I bet everybody here in the room would want to be treated by one of our devices. Because what do our devices do? They make people look visibly better. They are anti-aging devices. So let's get started. The company at a glance, we were founded in 2000. We sold our first system in 2002, and we went on NASDAQ in 2004. Obviously, we're FDA regulated and regulated by all the other regulatory bodies around the world, and we sell everywhere, basically. Our corporate headquarters are in Yokneam, Israel. Now, this is really important because in Yokneam, and I've lived in Israel for many years, so Yokneam is a little town between Haifa and Tel Aviv. And in Yokneam, literally, I can walk from Cineron to Luminous to UltraShape and to another company that I don't remember. 4 companies in the field of aesthetic medicine. Now, in Israel, there are probably at least 10 companies in this field. And I wonder, why do you think that is? Now, if I would ask my daughters, they would say, because Israelis are really good looking, and they want everybody else to be good looking too. So, we sell all over the world. We've got more than 40 distributors. We've just opened an office in China. We've got a small office in Hong Kong. And here in California, we're located in Irvine. The company highlights. Basically, we've kind of reviewed some of these things. I'll touch on more of it as we move along. We have 8 patents. We've got 20 pending. We have a proprietary technology, and this is really quite interesting because you spoke previously about Raphael being kind of the hothouse of where a technology idea came from, and that was kind of the genesis of one of the companies that our CEO, Shimon Eckhouse, founded before he founded Cineron. He founded a company called ESC Medical, also a laser and light device company, and he found that there was a certain technology that could basically remove paint. And he thought, you know, maybe we can use that technology to remove pigment from people's skin. And that's how ESC started. And from that technology, we grew into this company. Shimon eventually left that company and went on to found Cineron. And in Cineron, he developed a new technology. And that technology was to combine optical energy, so light or laser, and radio frequency. And we are unique in the world with that technology. So we move those two together and we do all kinds of magic with them. We've got some other nice things going on because a couple of years ago, we entered into a partnership relationship with Procter & Gamble. And as far as I'm aware, we're the only Israeli company in our space that has that, I mean, I'm sure that, only company that has that kind of relationship. And what we're doing, the kinds of systems we developed until today are for the medical industry. Medical and outside of the United States, they're used in some countries by estheticians. Now with Procter & Gamble, what we're developing, we're miniaturizing. We talked earlier today about, you know, the cell phone shrinking down. So what we're doing is miniaturizing things, and we're working on a home use device for people to use at home for aesthetic procedures, and P&G will be obviously the marketers and distributors of that device. It's kind of interesting to think about how we got into this space, because Shimon in like 1994 said, well, you know, baby boomers have quite a bit of money. Everybody really wants to look good, you know, and people have the disposable income to be able to do it. And on the other hand, doctors have a problem. They're being tied in knots by insurance companies, and they want to be able to find out how they can earn more money. And how they could earn more money is by offering pay, you know, per procedure instead of going through the insurance companies. So those were kind of the two push and pulls for getting into this industry. If we look at the segments we sell into currently, it's physicians it's estheticians, and we figure that around the world we have an audience of about 1 million people that we can sell our products to, our customers. Now, if we look at what the problems in the human skin that we treat with our technologies, we take care of skin texture, so we can reduce the laxity in your skin. We treat wrinkles. We treat acne. We treat pigmented lesions. That's where we started. We do hair removal. Now, Yossi talked before about hair removal in that particular area. Believe me, I know of providers who do that with our technology. So, and we have a unique aspect, which is cellulite removal and actually circumferential reduction. And we're the only company in the world that has FDA clearance for these two applications. This is the ELOS technology that I mentioned before, the combination of optical energy and radio frequency energy. The optical energy is released first. It heats up the tissue. It increases the conductivity of the radio frequency. What that means for the patient and for the doctor is that it's a safer procedure than some of the other optical-only procedures. And I'll get to why that is in just a minute. Let me just this is stuck. It's not moving. Beat it? No. Could you just advance to the next slide manually? Do I have to point it somewhere else or something? No? Well, I don't remember exactly what comes next, but we have a portfolio of products. We have 2 products for the body area. We have this technology that treats cellulite and circumferential reduction, and that product, we're in our 3rd generation of that product right now, and we have performed over 3 million treatments around the world with the product. I don't know what happened. Here we go. Can you just move it along? Just advance it, okay? Because I want to, okay. They're the products. The ones on the left are the body products. The ones on the right are the face products. And you can see that we're getting smaller as we introduce. This is our newest product. And I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Can you just go forward? There you go. It's really hard to see with the lighting that we have in here, but this is an example of what happens when somebody does a procedure called skin rejuvenation or skin tightening. The before-after picture is on the left, obviously. And you can see that her pigmentation is gone and her skin looks smoother. It works now? There we go. And this is a really interesting set of pictures that Shimon likes to show, because this woman was treated about 4.5 years ago, and you can see as time went by, her hands, the look and feel of her hands, the bottom picture on the is the most recent picture. The look and feel of her hands is much better. So there's improvement over time. This is the father of one of our physicians, and he treated his father and got significant skin tightening under his chin. This is the product that does cellulite and reduction and circumferential reduction, and you can see really nice improvement in the cellulite. Every single woman in the world, whoever she is, has cellulite. That is the fact. Men don't get it, women do. And so we have a huge audience. I want to just take 1 minute to, should I do this now or should I do this later? Now? Okay, perfect. So I want to take a minute and talk to you about a new paradigm that we have introduced. And this product is going to be shown, and this new paradigm procedure is going to be shown at a trade show starting tomorrow in Las Vegas. And what the paradigm is like this. About 30 years ago, when people wanted to get rid of their wrinkles, they went to a physician and they got skin resurfacing. And the skin resurfacing, they took off the epidermis of the entire skin. The recovery time from that was about 3 to 4 weeks until you could really, get your life back and look decent and stuff like that. And it was painful, and you had to keep going back to the doctor to check on it. About 4 years ago, a company decided, well, why should we do that? Why should we take off all the epidermis? So instead of that, why don't we just treat, little pinpoints here and there and leave healthy tissue around it to promote the healing of the tissue that's been treated? And that's called fractional skin rejuvenation, and there are a number of companies in that space, and it's been quite successful, and you might know some of the brand names. And about half a year or so ago, 3/4 of a year or so ago, we said, well, what if we just took radio frequency technology and applied it fractionally to the skin? What would happen? And what we found with lasers, you get a column beam that goes into the skin, and it goes straight down like that. With radio frequency, what happens is you get a pyramid kind of shape. So you get less ablation on the surface and more collagen, remodeling under the surface. And that's what you want. So we were able then to lower the downtime on this procedure from 3 to 4 weeks down to about 2 days. So this is really a remarkable accomplishment. And so we have a new name for this procedure, and it's called sublative rejuvenation. Afters. And the nice thing about this technology is that with laser or light-based skin resurfacing, typically you cannot treat people with darker skin types. People who have skin types 4, 5, and 6, Hispanic.
So we have a few more minutes, so I'm going to ask the panel a few questions, and then we'll get questions from the audience. So Ron, you are the first. What are you looking at specifically in Israel Life Science Technologies? Are there any specific areas? And when you choose an area, what are you examining in the company? What are the 3 most important things when you examine a company?
The first thing is that we will never invest in one-trick pony, in a single bullet. We have our wish list, which include MABs, molecular antibodies, biomarkers, and the areas are oncology and inflammation. We are trying to locate only companies after proof of concept, good management skills, and we're trying to make sure that our money will give enough fuel to the company to reach a real validation, a real comfort in their science.
Okay. Homi, you are a global company. What are the secret sources that you should tell the young Israeli companies? What are the 3 or 4 elements, key elements, to become a global company?
First, you need capital. Secondly, you need
taking
capital.
into account that you have the capital, but what are the other?
Obviously, you need to have a team, okay? And you need to have a good team. You need to have a team, and for example, in Given, I live in Atlanta, while Kevin is my chief operating officer, who is an American, live in Israel. So you need to really have an international team that you fit to what you need, because obviously we in Israel know technology, but we know nothing about regulatory qualities, which are very, very important things in medical devices. Because I came to the medical device 3 years ago, and I was in different industry. I did not realize, and it was really a big shock to me, that here is not the SEC who can shut down my company or my accountant. It's the FDA. Suddenly you have something that it's have the authority if you are not doing and complying in the right rate. So there is a lot of things that you need to do and build up the company. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons that you see a lot of Israeli startup company in medical device being sold very, very quickly after they came with the idea and the proof of concept. Because the ability of taking it to the sales and organization, the marketing organization, but behind that, to the manufacturing side, regulatory, how to approach the FDA. And FDA is only part. How you are approaching PEMDA in Japan, or how you are approaching other authorities in Europe. This is a very, very complex, and this is really the challenges that you face as a company. But when you build it, you have already a great platform, a platform that you can leverage your company and start moving it from being a small to a mid-size, and that's why I say why Given is going to be one day a big company.
Okay, thanks. Another question is important question that we are being asked quite often by especially US VCs and other corporates. You have your R&D in both your companies. The R&D is still in Israel and it's actually very creative. But they tell you, hey, you have the R&D in Israel, you want to be a global company, bring it over to the West or East Coast. What's your opinion?
I'm also in Yokneam, okay? And the reason we are all in Yokneam because we got from the government a very good tax benefit. So we are not paying tax for the next 15 years. And every time we make a additional acquisition, for example, recently we bought a business from Medtronic. So we bought a business from Medtronic, they manufacture it in Arizona, and we're shifting the whole manufacturing back to Israel. Why? Because it's cheaper to us to build it, we get tax benefit, and etc. Obviously, as I said, you build a management team and you build a company that is an international company. In my company, if I look at the board, I have people that not necessarily are sitting in a lot of boards. I have Israel Makov, who obviously is my chairman, used to be the CEO of Teva, but I have two board members that they are not Jewish, have no any indication why they wanted to be sitting on a board of an Israeli company. One of them is the chairman and CEO of Bristol Myers. It previously was Guidant, which he sold for $24 billion for Boston. And they are there in order to help us build a company as a company. So you need to have strong board members who are not only your shareholders, also people who believe in the vision you want to take the company, and they have the experience of running a very large company who can guide you.
Okay, Ran.
I completely agree with from his answer, but I will add that from the biotech company's point of view, I think that it's very smart to leave the R&D process in Israel because it's much cheaper, and as soon as you're reaching your clinical stage, to launch it in the US as well, meaning to use a positive result in order to leverage the business development activities that you want to make with your company.
The other question that comes up is when to do partnership with the big pharma or the large medical devices, earlier or later on. That's a big question that every CEO or every board asks themselves almost every month. So what's your opinion?
Well, the alternative answer is never. Take it all the way, but nobody can do that. So what we're trying to do is to invest in platforms, and therefore to take only your second product, not your lead compound, into a partnership as soon as possible, and to try to leverage and to take the leading compound almost into phase 2B all by yourself, using other people money or the pharma or your strategic partner from the other compound to financing the leading compound. And therefore, if I'm trying to duplicate models from the US, I can see companies like Exelixis that signed a huge deal with Bristol and with Sanofi in the last 8 months. That they took their very nice platform, real nice biotech MABS platform. They out-licensed only 3 molecules to the Bristol and to Sanofi, and they are taking one leading compound into phase 3 by themselves. I think it's a great model, and we should duplicate it in Israel.
Okay, thank you. Anne, one question for you. How you bridge the gap between the markets that are over here and around the world and the R&D that sits in Yokneam, and they should know exactly what the market needs and what the market wishes for, how you bridge that gap. That's very important for a global company that has the R&D in Israel.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And what we do is a combination of things. We have people on the marketing team here, because our marketing team, global marketing team is located here, that go out into the marketplace, meet the key opinion leaders, and report back that information. We also have a young boy genius who kind of flies around the world collecting information. We know our chairman of the board is very, very involved in understanding what's going on in the market. He has his finger on the pulse all the time with what's happening. We bring the R&D leaders, and that's an interesting part because in our company, many of the R&D people are actually immigrants from Russia. So we have a strong, you'll walk down the corridor, you'll hear Hebrew, English, and Russian. So we bring those people out to conferences to make sure that they understand what's going on in the marketplace too. So it's a challenge though. Yeah.
Any questions from the audience? Please. I don't think that. Can you repeat the question? I don't think.
The question was if there is a need or a plan to make the piece more smaller. It's really a lot of times not the size of the piece, because sometimes we design the piece, there is some characteristic, but we want the piece to be bigger. Because just for example, when we are moving into the column, we need to float it, because you are in liquid, so it's actually becoming a submarine. So from a missile, it's now a submarine. So there is a few things that again, depend. We believe, for example, people who have Crohn's disease, we might want it to have a smaller pill because of the strictures in their body. Yes, we can do it. We are working on that. But again, depend what eventually. By the way, the pill was chosen and now displayed in the Modern Science Museum in New York. So it's again, it's some kind of things that you can all the time play with that and decide what is really the right application in order to use the pill for.
Any other questions? I have a question. It's a treasure that's going to be discovered. I told you the last decade was the inception, and the next decade will be the breakthrough of this sector in Israel. So I would like just to ask the other panelists, what are the takeaways that they want the audience, one sentence, to learn about the life science industry in Israel? Ran, you start.
Three short sentences. The first one, Israel has a great abilities in life science. The second one, it's very cheap and the valuation are very low. And the third and the last is that if you'll come first as an investor, as a pharma company, as a lawyer, as a CPA, you might be a leader in your field.
You need patience, because I keep saying, and as Israeli, being patient is very uncharacteristic. But in medical device...
That's contradict the Israeli character, no?
It doesn't fit the Israeli character. But you need to be patient, because you need to build the company step after step. You need to have your strategy. For example, as I demonstrated earlier, we know where we need to be and where we are going to be 5 or 7 years from now. So you need to do it step after step. You cannot take shortcut. You make a shortcut, you get stuck by the regularity, FDA, or any other issue. So,
and being an Israeli American.
Thank you. I think the most important thing is innovation. I mean, we heard with Given, we heard with Cineron, you know, the companies were founded on technologies that were developed somewhere else and made to a new application. So they were at first for the military complex, and then they were moved into the medical field. And I think innovation is you know, amazingly important and one of Israel's key assets.
Thank you very much. Let's conclude the session.